Okay, so this is a big one. In today's video, we are taking a look at the all-new Apple Watch Ultra versus the all-new Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. Let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, price. I want to start off with price here simply because it's been the topic of conversation in a lot of settings, especially as it pertains to the newer generation of these crazy expensive smartwatches, right? So let's go ahead and start off with the Apple Watch Ultra here. This guy will run you $800. That's pretty steep. Most people who buy this watch here are just average people. Most of them are not into extreme sports, but yet they go for the Watch Ultra. The Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here also does come out at a fairly high price, but nowhere near this guy. You are looking at $450 for the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here. Now, that alone should tell you that these two, despite being smart watches, are not really competing in the same category. They kind of are, but not really. It will come down to very specific things that you may be looking for, right? So the first thing you would have to do would be to first figure out what you are looking for in a smartwatch before you try to figure out which one to pick out of these two. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about design. Obviously, with the Ultra here, you have more of a squarish look. By the way, both look very rugged, but the Ultra here, even though it's more of a squarish look, it looks a bit more rugged than what you have with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here. You have a flat display here, which is just a very functional display. You have a crown with ridges that are a lot more, these grooves here are a lot more deeper. Then you have a button below that. On the left-hand side, you do have an action button that you can assign to different features depending on how you feel that day. And then you have the speakers on that same side, which, by the way, are louder to my, based off of my experience, are louder than what you have on the Galaxy Watch 5. On the Galaxy Watch 5, you only have two buttons, one at the top and one at the bottom. Then you do have a rotating bezel. It used to be more of a physical bezel like the one found on the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, but now you have a digital bezel. So in addition to using these two buttons on the side there for navigation, you can also use the rotating bezel to navigate. And of course, you'll be able to swipe up or swipe down, swipe left, right, and so forth to navigate. Same thing you should be able to do on the Apple Watch Ultra here. You should also be able to navigate using not only the crown, but swiping up, down, left, and right. In terms of the fit, I personally prefer the fit of the Apple Watch Ultra here. It fits pretty well on my arm here, and I don't have particularly, large wrist, but it sits pretty well on my wrist, whereas the setup diagram that you have on the Galaxy Watch 5 here makes it so that unless you have very large wrist, you still have these gaps between the top part and the bottom part of the watch and your wrist. And given the fact that it fits so well, the Ultra actually feels like it's light on my wrist, even though it's a heavier watch when compared to the Galaxy Watch Pro, Watch 5 Pro here. It's noticeably heavy when you have them in your hand side by side, but on my arm, it feels as if it's the same weight as the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, which again, it is not. Now, in terms of just the build quality, they build pretty well, but the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here doesn't feel as premium as the Apple Watch Ultra here, right? Even though they're both built with titanium, titanium bodies here on both watches, it just feels like the Ultra is a little bit more rugged, but yet premium. They also do share that same sapphire glass on the front there. And I just feel like the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here may not look as premium, even though it is a premium watch. They're both premium, very premium watch. That's why they cost so much, right? Even though it is a premium watch, some parts of the watch make it feel like, or make it look like it's plastic. Now, I did say this with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra when I was telling people, I know that this is not plastic. I know the S22 Ultra is not made of plastic, but the way Samsung just has a way of making it seem like a mix of, plastic and some level of metal, even though it's not plastic. So the same thing goes here. I'm not sure what the back is made of, but it just doesn't push off that vibe of like very, metallic premium build like what you have here. Even when you look at the back of the Ultra, just looking at the back here, the Ultra looks a lot more premium than what you have on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here. Now, still sticking with the design here, before we even jump on display here, when it comes down to choosing either one of these, it's going to be subjective to what you prefer, right? To what your preference is. If you prefer, you know, round watches, obviously you'll go for the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, but if you prefer the squarish look of the Ultra here, you would go for that. So if you are used to using Apple Watches, for example, if you've always used Apple Watches, then obviously this is the look that you'll be going for, because it just kind of continues that same look that Apple had started with their Apple Watches. So it truly will depend. Personally, I'm a fan of round watches, right? Which is why I would have a bias for this, you know, in terms of just wearing it. But the comfort of this guy here is so much better. And even the user experience make it so that I'm wearing this more than I wear the Galaxy Watch here. But we'll get to that in a moment. Now, in terms of internal specs, what you have on the Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here is the same chipset we had on the previous generation. And it's also the same one that is found on the regular Samsung Galaxy Watch 5, right? Which is that Exynos W920. Whereas on the Apple Watch Ultra here, what you have is the Apple S8. That is also the same platform found on the regular Apple Watch Series 8, right? So most things that you have on the Apple Watch Series 8 would be found here. In terms of the storage, internal storage, you have 32 gigs of internal storage on the Ultra here, and you have 16 gigs on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. On the Watch 5 Pro also, you do have 1.5 gigs of RAM, whereas here, I'm not sure what it is. The display on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here is going to be 1.4 inches, which is already a pretty large display. It's pretty comfortable, you know, for you to be able to click stuff. And but the display on the Apple Watch Ultra here is a whopping 1.9 inches display, along with 2,000 nits in terms of brightness on the Ultra here. And I can already tell you that it's much brighter than what you have on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. But it's not as if people were having issues with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro where they couldn't see. No, you could definitely see, you can enjoy, you know, even if you're running, you know, daylight, it's daylight and it's super bright and you're running under direct sunlight, you should still be able to see your display without any issues on the 5 Pro here. On the Ultra, on the other hand, the combination of that 2,000 nits, which already makes the display very bright, the combination of that and the size of the display at 1.9 inches, along with the fact that the display is square, makes it so that the user experience is much better here than it is on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro. For example, a few times when I was jogging, and I noticed that when I'm jogging with the Ultra here, I'm not having a hard time clicking on things, changing things, using that big screen. And the fact that the display there is flat makes it so very functional, right? Like part of the, it's not like it's rounded where part of the display is here where you have to make sure that you really click that. It's flat. If you're touching the side there, then you simply are touching the bezel. So it routes you to touch the main display, and it's so very practical so that as you are jogging, and you are looking at the watch as you're bouncing, you know, left and right, it's already very bright so that when you go to click for something, you can't really miss it. It's easier to navigate while you're jogging. So I found the user experience here to be much better. Whereas as you're jogging with this, and you are trying to scroll, this is a round display, right? And you try to scroll or try to click something, you are likely to make mistakes using the Watch 5 Pro here than you are on the Ultra. And since we're talking to jogging, the GPS seems to be a bit more accurate on here also. You may remember the issue that I brought up, not an issue that I brought up a solution to an issue, because a lot of people are complaining about the fact that the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro and the regular Galaxy Watch 5 don't seem to be very accurate. Like when people are jogging or they go jogging, things seem to be a little bit off. And I explained that the reason behind that was the fact that once you engage, once you turn on, you know, an exercise and you start working out, the watch itself is still trying to connect to the satellite, right? So that it can start tracking, so that GPS can start tracking you properly. And it generally takes maybe 10 seconds. It takes a few seconds. It takes like 10, 15, 20, depends. Sometimes it takes longer. It took up to 30 seconds at one point when I was trying it. And I realized that, you know, the best way to go about it would be to turn on and put your exercise and just pause it and wait for it to connect to GPS, then you take off running. So to connect to satellites, then you go ahead and take off running, and then it will be very accurate. On the Ultra, once you get that exercise going, it's just a matter of a few seconds and it's connected. So it's a lot more accurate in my personal experience, when compared to the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here. Now, if you do experience something different, please feel free to share in the comment section. I'm always looking forward to things like that so we can get this conversation going. Now, in terms of sensors, they seem to be about the same, like sleep tracking sensors, heart rate sensors, and all of that good stuff seem to be about the same, right? In terms of like tracking it, some numbers may be not off, but like slightly different. But I don't think that in terms of sensors, the Apple Watch Ultra is a lot better than what you have with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here, but that could be just me. Now, with that being said, both do support, body temperature. So with the sensor and tracking those temperatures, I need to highlight the fact that with Samsung here, it still seems to be on hold, whereas you can already use it with the Ultra. For accessibility, of course, with the Ultra here, just that action button makes it very easy for you to quickly jump into one thing or the other, right? Whereas here you would have to use either just these two buttons or simply navigate to the menus and then figure out what you're trying to do. And it would take maybe an extra second, but not really an issue. One thing to highlight here is that the Ultra here does have some additional, safety features. If you remember, or if you've seen the commercial, then you know that there's a siren here. If you are lost, you should be able to hit that. And if there's anyone, nearby, they should be able to hear that SOS call and get to you. Because you have to think about the fact that these are geared towards people who are into extreme sports. So you may find some features here that may work slightly differently when compared to what you have here. You also do have a 3 mic array here, right? So you have more mics here than you do have here. But when it comes down to just talking to people in general, either one, you would have to hold it, fairly close to your mouth in order for them to properly hear and understand what you're saying. They both are water resistant, right? So to a certain extent, but with this, you can go as deep as 100 meters, because this guy here is IP6X rated, whereas the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro is IP68 rated, right? So 50 meters, whereas with this one, you could go up to 100 meters. Now, the big thing here, or the main thing that attracts people to either one of these watches will be battery, right? So the battery life on the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, straight up is better than what you have on the Apple Watch Ultra here, right? So with the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro here, if you remember, I said that with moderate usage, you should be able to see pretty close to 4 days, right? Depending on how you use it. And if you don't use it much, you should see way more than that. Whereas here, with that same moderate usage, you should be seeing, pretty close to 3 days. And then if you use it a lot more, in a lot more aggressive manner, then you should be seeing about 2 days here and 3 days here. So by that simply means, you using the sleep tracking features and you wear your watch pretty much 24/7, you hit the gym, you always checking this, you're answering messages and all that stuff, you should be seeing 2+ days here. If you do the same here, you should be seeing about 3 days. It's always going to be subjective to your type of usage. This is just my take comparing or pitting these two against each other. Do you have any questions? Let me know with your questions or comment in the comment section. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I always do. Make sure, of course, to like, share this video if you know anyone who'll be interested. Subscribe, of course. Make sure to subscribe. I'm going to catch you in the next video as well. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.